Yo, y'all, what's going on? This is Big Cozy, Too Cozy, and Relaxing, Noji_Jackson, and we are here to talk about more MMA news and more MMA events, situations, fights, fighters, things like that. We are back for yet again another episode of the Highly Advised MMA podcast. How are you, Lau?
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Big Cozy, Too Cozy. We're here for episode 2 of the Highly Advised MMA podcast. We got a few things to talk about, but before we really get into it, make sure you follow us at the Highly Advised podcast on Instagram. Make sure you follow us at Advised Highly on Twitter, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Highly Advised podcast. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share to a friend, family member, whatever. So make sure you do that. We're here. We got a few things to talk about in the world of MMA. We're definitely trying to be more involved in what's going on behind the scenes and actually what's in the cage or octagon, depending on whatever promotion or ring, because some MMA promotions use a ring. So Nigel, how have you been? Ready to talk about any MMA? Yeah, let's get into it, really.
It's crazy because there hasn't been a fight since before this fight that just happened on this past weekend.
Right.
The 17th of December or something like that. It's been a bit, and I think everybody was kind of looking forward to this fight. Funny enough, both main events had Sean Strickland, and he went in and fought. I don't want to try to pronounce the fighter's name he went against. I know I will badly fuck it up, but
Imavov,
thank you. And he went in there, and surprisingly to me, because I thought Imavov was going to be the winner of this fight, Sean Strickland went in on 2 days' notice and beat him, and protected his spot in the top 10 of the middleweight division. To me, Sean Strickland coming in, beating him on such short notice says that, hey, Sean Strickland has the style that apparently this guy was not prepared for. And it's kind of, I would say, good on Sean Strickland for going in there and winning the fight. I didn't expect him to win the fight because I thought Imavov was just going to be the more skilled fighter, but he pretty much weared on him for majority of the fight and did his style of walking him down and, mixing up grappling and his stand-up.
Now, so after seeing that main event, would you recommend, hey, it's a fight, everybody should go back and check it out? And the next thing I would ask, I guess, is what do you see what's next for Sean Strickland?
I would say Sean Strickland's definitely earned somebody in the top 5. You got Izzy in there, Whitaker. I would say Marvin Vettori is probably in the top 5 at the moment. I think he's earned, of course you have Alex, but, he's probably going to fight Izzy. So I would say he's earned his fight against one of them. The fight was okay. It was a little back and forth. It wasn't necessarily the worst fight I've ever seen, not a barn burner either. But to me, I think that's what he should be doing next, fighting somebody in the top 5.
Okay. Is there any other fights from the past fight night, or I guess past 2 fight nights you want to reference before we move on to the next thing?
Shout out to Dan Ige. He went in there, he got his knockout win. It was kind of impressive. The guy he beat, got folded back, and that's just the way it was. I can't remember his name at the moment.
Damon Jackson.
Thank you. And I'm not going to say that he was necessarily fighting the worst fight ever. But, Dan Ige, they call him 50K, because he got that power in his hand. So there it goes. He won the fight, and, he's probably going to end up fighting somebody in the, I would say, top 10 next.
Okay. Is there any names that you think that you will like to see him go against for his next fight?
At featherweight, I don't know, man. What's Arnold Allen doing? It would be a nice fight for Bryce Mitchell to kind of come back to, somebody who's trying to earn their way into the top 10 where he's at. So I think that would be an interesting matchup.
Okay. So I don't know if you had a chance to watch the press conference of Fight Night that just passed this weekend. Um, Dana White was on there, and he definitely broke some fight news that I know that you're aware of. But for the listeners, I guess let's just start with what's the biggest piece of news that he revealed.
Francis Ngannou has been stripped of the UFC Heavyweight Championship, and the belt is now vacant. This is the biggest, I would say, free agent departure that we've seen from the UFC in modern times. I don't think we've seen something like this since like people were leaving to go to Pride and Strikeforce, PFL.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
IFL. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We haven't seen like people separate. I don't want to say that because not everybody. This is just like one of the biggest stars to leave, but we haven't seen something like this in quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I'll say for the 2000, well, for sure it might be the biggest for the 20s, right? As of right now, we don't know what's going to happen for the remaining 7 years of this decade, right? But for I will say if you had to do 2013 from 2023, I would say it's probably the biggest free agent, because I know Eddie Alvarez was pretty big, but he's not as well known as Francis Ngannou is today.
Right.
Now, for hardcore MMA fans or MMA fans that watch MMA very frequently and understand what's going on, they know how much of a big deal Eddie Alvarez is. But as far as like a superstar, somebody that you're trying to put on the main event of a pay-per-view, it's, they haven't had anybody on the Francis Ngannou level that just officially became a free agent from the UFC, especially after the UFC. Well, according to Dana White, they were throwing him so much money that Francis would have been the highest paid heavyweight in UFC history. Now, of course, even though it's coming from Dana's mouth, you could still kind of take it with a grain of salt because we don't know how much money that is. We don't know how much. Dana says that he is going to be getting paid. He would have got paid more than Brock Lesnar, but we don't know what that number is for Francis. It could be, hey, $1 million per fight. It could be $2 million per fight. It could be $1 million for pay-per-view. It could be $2 million with pay-per-view. We don't necessarily know that number. And if Francis walked away from a 7-figure number, it's probably because he either something is letting him know, whether it's a person or a company outside of the UFC letting him know we're offering 8 figures or better, or it could still be a 7-figure number, but just larger than what the UFC offered. But I would like to say that I think Francis is gambling on himself, and Francis is taking a chance to basically test the market when it comes to this free agency to see how much money he's going to get. I would like to think that he is pursuing that big boxing fight with Tyson Fury that's been rumored, but I'm not going to say that is for sure the thing. I would like to see Francis stay with the UFC for, if we're going to be honest, as far as like competition standpoint, because the best heavyweights are in the UFC right now. But if Francis gets a deal with like the PFL, or he's able to go, to Bellator or something, because they're offering him double than what Dana White offered him, then more power to him. You should go get your money, because at the end of this game, it is prize fighting. So once you get your money and stuff like that, if you still want to stay in the game, then I would say, hey, go fight the best competition. But we'll see what happens for Francis. I hope Francis could get himself a really nice, lucrative deal, but we'll just see. Well, I guess that's it. We'll just see. What was your opinion on that?
To me, I think it's interesting to see Francis Ngannou be a free agent. My issue, I don't even think I necessarily have an issue with him leaving. I think it's good that he's going out to try to get the most money he can. Obviously, the deal that the UFC presented him was not up to his standard, so he left. I'm not sure if that's necessarily a fighter pay thing or if that's a Francis Ngannou thinks he's worth more thing. But I mean, who knows? I think if he's going to pursue the fight with Tyson Fury, I think that's the best monetary move he can make. if he signs with another MMA promotion, he probably can get paid a lot of money. I don't think it would compare to that fight. My only issue with him going to another MMA promotion is, who is he going to fight? Like, yeah, there are other heavyweights out there that he can fight that aren't in the UFC. But like, who of note that's actually interesting is he going to fight? And, let's say there's one person like that. Are there two or three? You know what I mean? Like, this is what we're looking forward to in the future. I don't think he's going just for one super fight and then being out.
I put like this. It all kind of depends on the offers that Francis get and the opponents that's available for him. I think that if we're just talking strictly money, go after the Tyson Fury fight if available. Go after that, because more than likely Francis can get that 8-figure payday, $10 million or above, right? That's probably the only place where he's going to get an 8-figure payday for him. Now, if he's talking about just MMA, I would like to. Now, if it depends on competition, right? If we're talking about fighting the best of the world, right? With the most eyeballs on you and everything, then he would have to go back to UFC. But obviously, that's not the situation anymore, because he didn't like what they offered him. So now the only three like promotions that's worth anything to talk about on the global level is either ONE FC, PFL, or Bellator. I think out of those three, as far as like MMA competition, Bellator probably has the best heavyweight division out of those three. So if Bellator could make him an offer, but Francis still wants to fight somewhat somewhat of a challenge when it comes to the competition standpoint, I will go to Bellator. If he wants to go somewhere where he can make a lot more money, but he'll get the eyeballs on him, and he might not fight the best competition, but he'll still get some notoriety because people do tune in, I would say the PFL. If he just wants to go balls to the wall, look, they offer me a lot of money, I don't care if the competition is premier or not, then go to ONE FC, right? I think that's all. It just really depends on what he really wants and what's the offers being thrown his way. Because he already walked away from the UFC, so really he only has 4 options, right? ONE FC, or I guess 5 if you add bare knuckle. But I really don't want to see him go bare knuckle.
I think that's a bad move. I think that is the one bad move in the situation.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to see him in bare knuckle, and quite frankly, I just don't want to see him in ONE FC. And nothing against ONE FC, but as of right now, I don't think like that's a superb heavyweight division at the moment. That ONE FC might develop into a place where, hey, all the heavyweight MMA fighters want to be here. But right now, I don't think that's the place. I think PFL has potential, and I think Bellator right now is the second best spot for MMA when it comes to heavyweights. Or just go straight to the boxing if you can get that. If you can get that $1 million payday, whether it's a high 7-figure number or 8-figure number, Francis, go for it, because him versus Tyson Fury, yeah, that's a tall task for Francis, but at the end of the day, he will be paid, and I think that's like one of his biggest things. It's not all about the money with Francis. He's already came out and said that, but I think that if he can get what he's looking for in a contract plus getting paid, I think he'll be satisfied.
No, that leaves the other side of this. Obviously, with Francis Ngannou going and get his money, there is a vacant belt. So Dana White at the press conference last night, he says, hey, the fight that we are making in its place, since Francis Ngannou has vacated the belt, is Jon Jones making his return against Ciryl Gane. This is an interesting fight for quite a few reasons. Obviously, Jon Jones is coming off his lengthy hiatus to fight Ciryl Gane, coming off a nice knockout over a Tai Tuivasa. I don't really know who I'm gonna pick in this fight just yet. I think this is a little interesting fight because it's not just some slouch. This is number 2 in the heavyweight division right now. You know,
You're right.
so this is probably, I would say, outside of the Francis fight, probably the best fight for Jon Jones that you can make. Stipe,
Yeah.
I think, would have been cool, but I honestly think Stipe kind of lowered his value in this like little, I would say, vacant spot by just not fighting. You know, like I understand that a lot of us like in the MMA community consider him to be one of the best heavyweights ever, but that being said, if we're going to be honest, nobody's excited to see the Jon Jones Stipe fight the way they would be excited for Ciryl Gane or Francis Ngannou, and that just is what it is.
Right. I think with that is Stipe still has his fan base out there. A lot of people do root for him dearly, and they're just he has a true following. And my opinion on the whole Stipe situation is when he got the rematch against Daniel Cormier, it made a lot of sense, right? He basically gave Daniel Cormier a gift title shot. It didn't work out for him. Yeah, he got KO'd. He came back and KO'd Daniel, and then they did the trilogy right away, right? Because Daniel was like, "Look, I gave you a rematch. Just give me one." Fair enough, right? When he fought Francis was at that time, Francis was the for sure number one contender. He was knocking people out. There was nobody else that had a outside of Stipe and Daniel, who just retired at that point too. There was nobody else had a better resume to challenge for the heavyweight title at that time, but Francis. Francis knocks out Stipe in the second round of their title fight, and before him knocking out, Francis was in control of the entire fight. So it wasn't like a back and forth war and Francis got a split decision win, or a back and forth war and Francis happened to get him with a lucky knockout, or back and forth war and Stipe was very well on his way to winning, but he just happened to get TKO'd or some shit like that. Slipped on a banana peel. So outside of those situations, I didn't really think it was necessary for the Stipe and Francis trilogy to happen, because I was like, you know, it wasn't like a gift to title shot. It wasn't like those situations I just mentioned. I just felt like, hey, it was a rematch, but it was a rematch. I mean, it's a fight that's happening again years later from the first one. So I think that Francis winning that, he earned the right to move on to fight other opponents. Um, I think Stipe should have took another fight, and I'm not saying give him a tune-up, but give him a chance to fight against another top contender. If Stipe won that, he's right back there ready for a title shot. But I think that kind of hindered his chances. Where now, of course, I'm not in the planning circles or the stages when you're booking fights. But if you had to go by all the reports and shit that you've seen on the internet, and I know don't always believe the internet, but if you had to go by that, you would see like, hey, Stipe only wanted that rematch against Francis. Well, that's not necessarily what the UFC wanted, and that's why everything is kind of like you haven't seen that Stipe Francis talk get any bigger than it has. I would like to see Stipe come back and fight. I don't know who. That Curtis Blades fight would look really good for Stipe, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see how the UFC is handling Stipe. Um, my thought on Jon Jones and Ciryl Gane is I think Jon and Ciryl Gane I think this is a good matchup. It is, because I know people might not like to hear this, but I think this is honestly a good match, a favorable matchup for Jon to start his heavyweight journey, because he's not fighting. Yes, he is fighting a guy that is dangerous in Ciryl Gane. I'm not going to sit there and say Ciryl Gane is some walk in the park, Joe. Sir, but this is not like Jon Jones fighting a Stipe or Jon Jones fighting Curtis Blades, two guys with a wrestling acumen. So I think this is like a good fight for Jon Jones. Yeah, he's fighting the top of the division, but he's also fighting a guy who doesn't have that grappling pedigree as the other two fighters that I mentioned. So I feel like this is a good testing ground for Jon to see, like, okay, can he start hanging with the heavyweights, or is this a little too much for him? So I think I think this is good matchmaking. I really want to see this fight. I'm not going to predict the winner yet until we get closer to the fight, but I'm excited to see this heavyweight championship fight.
So also on that card, we had another fight announced, which is a fight that the fans have been waiting for. The rematch from last year, I would like to say around July. Leon Edwards knocked out Kamaru Usman in the 5th round of their fight for the welterweight belt. We will get the trilogy on the same card, UFC 286. So I think that card, it's going to be a good card to watch. I'm not sure if it necessarily earned the $75, but it is going to be worth watching for sure.
Well, I think it's $80 now.
I don't know, Dana. You gotta think of another fight to put on there.
No, I'm gonna support the Leon Edwards Kamaru Usman trilogy. You got two really good fighters on there, two definitely top 3 welterweights. Both of them are in the top 3. Obviously, it's the 1 and the 2 going against each other for the 3rd time. And I think this is the right fight to make. I was kind of saying that in the past in previous podcast episodes, but I think that this is the right fight to make for that trilogy fight. I think obviously Leon has a lot he wants to prove, like, hey, me knocking out Kamaru wasn't a fluke. And I think Kamaru wants to prove, like, hey, not only I'm the best welterweight in the world, but the knockout should have never have happened type of deal. So I think this is a good trilogy fight to make. I saw that Dana announced that Rafael Fiziev is going against Justin Gaethje, which in my opinion is a really good fight to make, because hey, Rafael Fiziev is looking like the future of the lightweight division, while Justin Gaethje is looking like, all right, is he going to be still a top 10 lightweight fighter, or is his time starting to come? And I think that's a really good fight. I know there's other fights for that card, but just for the sake of today, we were just mentioning the trilogy being announced.
Yeah, I definitely am looking forward to that card, but I guess to move on, or I should say to, move forward in time a little bit, we have UFC 283 coming on, the first pay-per-view of the year. This is happening in Brazil. This is the first Brazil fight we've had since the pandemic started.
Yeah, the last Brazil card was that the Kevin Lee, when he lost to Charles Oliveira, and that's when people started talking about, like, oh, keep an eye out for Charles Oliveira. He's has a really good win streak. This is like right before the Tony Ferguson fight.
All right, so yeah, the crowd is about to be amazing for this one. The Brazil crowd always shows up. They say their chants, and they cheer for their. I would say, how would you describe them? What nation, man? Countrymen?
Countrymen. I was going to say they're countrymen. Yeah.
Okay. So, you want to start this fight off, or I'll say talking about this fight card with the two fights that we saw in the prelims that were interesting to us?
I guess we could start off by mentioning what prelim fights we're interested in. The two that I'm interested in is the one with Terrence McKinney, and the other one with Shogun. Now, Terrence McKinney, he's starting to get a social media presence, but he's a good fighter. Besides the Drew Dober fight, he's finished his opponents, and he's finishing them fast.
Yep.
So there's veteran fighters saying, like, hey, Terrence McKinney's actually pretty solid. The dude works hard. Look out for him in the future. So I'm curious to see his fight. For Shogun, on the other hand, I believe this is Shogun's last fight. Don't quote me on that, but if it is for sure his last fight, I still want to see it. Shogun is forever etched in MMA history. If he had a top 10 greatest light heavyweights of all time, Shogun is absolutely in that top 10.
He has to be.
He without a doubt, he has a strong resume. He's beat some legends and fought some good guys. So I want to see it. I don't know I don't know how he's going to fare in his last fight because, yeah, he is getting older. He's not the Shogun that won the title from Machida. He's not the Shogun that KO'd Rampage. You know what I mean? He's not the Shogun that KO'd Chuck Liddell. So I just want to see how he does, and hopefully he has a good showing. Win or lose, hopefully he has a good showing and he's able to retire with his head held high.
All right. So with that being said, to start off the main card, we have Paul Craig versus Johnny Walker. I think this is a fight that Paul Craig wins unless he gets cracked by Johnny Walker. He has that ability in him, but
I agree.
Paul Craig has that ability in him as well, and the ground game to go with it, which I don't think Johnny Walker is really going to be able to hang with Paul Craig on the ground as crafty as he's shown himself to be.
I agree. I don't think that Johnny Walker is going to be able to really swim with the sharks when it comes to the grappling on the ground with Paul Craig. I am picking Paul Craig to win this fight just because I believe that his grappling is always going to be a threat no matter who he faces because he's that damn good with his submissions and everything. Johnny Walker, he does have that knockout power. So yes, he can on any given fight night, he can catch you with something and knock you clean out. It's happened in a few other fights. I just think that Paul Craig is a little stiffer in competition than what Johnny Walker is usually used to facing outside of Corey Anderson. Outside of Corey Anderson, I think Paul Craig is like the next. And Jamal Hill, yes, I give that credit. Who's fighting for the title in the main event?
Yeah.
Besides those two guys, I think Paul Craig is going to be pretty stiff for him, especially on the grappling side of things. I wouldn't recommend Paul Craig to get in a striking battle with Johnny Walker. I don't think that'll turn out well. But if he uses his striking to mix it up with Johnny so he could drag him to the ground into his world, I think it'll be his fight to lose. So I am picking Paul Craig to win this fight.
All right. So the next fight we have is Jessica Andrade versus Lauren Murphy. I think this is an interesting fight to make. Jessica Andrade is on a little bit of a winning streak, if I'm not mistaken. And she's been finishing her last few opponents. She's been looking like a steamroller at flyweight at the moment. Lauren Murphy, I don't feel is a bad fighter. I think she's a well-rounded fighter. I don't think she's necessarily skilled enough to stand the storm that's going to come with Jessica Andrade. That being said, she's really been looking like damn near unstoppable in these last few fights that she's had. So I'm picking Jessica Andrade to win this fight. But that being said, I'm not sure if it's necessarily going to be, I don't know if she's going to get the finishes she's been getting in the last few fights.
I am going to pick Jessica Andrade over Lauren Murphy. I am going to predict. Let me just say this for the Johnny Walker Paul Craig fight. I'm predicting a first round submission for Paul Craig, to be more specific.
Okay.
For Jessica Andrade, I am predicting a second round KO for Jessica Andrade to win. I think Lauren Murphy is a tough out. I think she's proved it. Lauren Murphy is a top 10 women's flyweight fighter without a shadow of doubt. Top 5 for sure. Jessica Andrade, man, she's like the premier number 2 in any weight class she fights. The only people she loses to is the current title holders. Outside of the current title holders, I think she beats every other woman in the division. She's beat former champions. She used to be a champion herself. I think Jessica Andrade has what it takes to be a champion again.
I agree.
I don't think Lauren Murphy is going to be able to handle the power of Jessica Andrade for too much long. Yes, I think she'll be able to hit Jessica Andrade because Jessica Andrade doesn't have the best striking defense. But I think once Jessica Andrade gets to rolling and she starts clicking, it's going to be a long night. And Lauren Murphy, I mean, she was an underdog before and with the Miesha Tate fight, and she dominated Miesha Tate, so she could always do that again with Jessica. But I think Jessica Andrade, I think it's going to be her night on Saturday.
The next fight we have, the middle fight card, I'll say middle card fight is Gilbert Burns versus Neil Magny. Neil Magny isn't necessarily an easy out. He's a skilled fighter. But what I will say is I feel like everywhere that he's good at, Gilbert Burns is better than him. And not only that, I feel like Gilbert Burns has knockout power that he can use against Neil Magny on one of these transitions, getting up from the ground, where he's good at, he's showing it, and knock him out. So I have Gilbert Burns finishing this fight in the second round.
Really, I have a first round knockout for Gilbert.
Sir,
I think Gilbert Burns is very skilled. I think he's easily one of the best welterweights in the world, top 5, absolutely. I think the only thing that kind of hindered him was that loss to Hamzat, but at the same time, Hamzat's proven that he's elite himself. I think Gilbert Burns is going to knock Neil Magny out in the first round. I'm not saying it's going to be like within the first 2 exchanges, no, but I think once the fight gets rolling forward at some point in that first round, I think Gilbert got the power to put Neil Magny away. And I'm not even saying from a skill set standpoint, because Neil Magny, like you said, he is a good all around fighter and he does a lot of good things. Unfortunately, I don't think his chin is going to hold up against the power of Gilbert Burns.
I agree. Now, the next fight we have, which is an interesting fight for many reasons, the first saga we have in the UFC, the fourth fight between Deiveson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. Interesting matchup. Obviously, this is, I would say, if Gilbert Burns is probably, or I would say it's one of the more fights that's more predictable. This fight is a toss-up. It's a toss-up if they've ever been a toss-up. They fought 3 times. The first time they had a draw, and then they split wins to the next 2. I have no idea how this fight's going to go. I just expect it to be a good one.
Yeah, I expect this fight to be the fight of the night. I expect this one to steal the show. I thought the third fight, when there were the co-main event under Francis and Ciryl Gane, I thought they stole the show on that night because they have good chemistry together when it comes to fighting. And I know that they're both trying to finish each other. They're not trying to be in there in a 5-round war. But with these guys, I think we can expect a 5-round war. They already showed that 3 times. They're willing to go against each other. And their fights are very entertaining. All 3 of them have been very entertaining. So I expect nothing less than this fourth fight. This is a toss-up, a 50-50 fight. But if I had to go with a winner, I think I'm going to side with Brandon Moreno, just because I feel like Brandon Moreno has been training, has been in the gym, has been fighting more frequently since his last fight. Yeah, it's only been 1 fight, but he's been more active than Deiveson Figueiredo. And there's been rumors going around saying Deiveson is not necessarily in fighting shape. There's been talks about him moving up to bantamweight and stuff. So I don't know if the weight is going to play an issue in his fight against Brandon. If they're both on point, like I said, it's 50-50. But if the issues about like, oh, well, he is kind of struggling with his weight or he hasn't really been training, because for whatever reason, then maybe I could give the edge to Brandon Moreno a little bit. But this is, once again, listeners, this is a fight that either man can win. And this is definitely the most challenging prediction of this night.
All right, so the next fight we have is the main event, Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill. And I think this fight will answer a lot of questions. Glover Teixeira is the wily veteran in here who, to everybody's surprise, beat Jan and then, also beat, or I should say did not beat Jury. Jury got the title, but then put up a good fight from him. They had a really back and forth fight. Jury gets the title taken away because of injury, and now we have this here to take up the vacant title between them. Jamal Hill, while I like him and I think he's a very skilled fighter, I think that if Glover Teixeira does have a chance against a top light heavyweight, this isn't necessarily the worst fight for him to have. only because I feel like Glover Teixeira has shown, if nothing else, that if he needs to depend on his ground game, he will depend on his ground game to win. And that being said, he's not all that bad on the feet still either. He can still, throw some punches here and there. So I don't want to choose Glover just because I don't think he's getting any older. And I don't think he's getting any younger. And I feel like he just doesn't have what it takes to beat a young, up and coming Jamal Hill who's hungry for the belt. I think he's going to take the fight. I wouldn't be surprised if he got the finish, but I'm looking for this to be a decision win by Jamal Hill.
I'm picking Glover to win submission by the second round.
Really?
Yeah, I am. The reason being is, yes, I know people are saying like, oh, well, he has the better grappling than Jamal Hill. And fair enough, he probably does. I think the reason why he's going to beat Jamal Hill is more or less of his fight IQ. I've seen some stuff in that Thiago Santos fight that Jamal Hill did need to go through. You need to go through adversity to know where your strength resides and what you need to work on. But I just think that him fighting Glover Teixeira on short notice doesn't really necessarily favor him. Glover, he's fought really good guys at light heavyweight. He's beat some of them, and he hasn't beat some of them, but he's been in there for a long time. His IQ is up there. He was winning that year Prozaca fight before he got submitted. Glover is not a dumb fighter. Yes, what he substituted for his old age is kind of like what the great Kobe Bryant did when compared to basketball. What he substituted was, I'm older now. I can't perform as athletically as before, but I still got the fundamentals. I still got the skills, but I also got my mind. I know what to do in here because I've been in this situation plenty of times.
Right.
So my IQ is still good enough to get me through a fight. My IQ is still good enough to get me to a championship. And that's what I think Glover has over Jamal Hill. Now, this is not to say Jamal can't win. Jamal got that knockout power. And also Jamal has shown that he is tough. You're not, just because you take him down and just because you land a few shots on him does not mean that he's going to go ahead and curl up and cover up. Remember, his loss to Paul Craig, he was still kind of fighting until his arm was just like flopping around where literally he couldn't do nothing no more. So that shows like, okay, this guy's not going to be easy to put away or easy to beat because he does have a tough mindset and he still has that knockout power behind him. I just don't know I just think Glover's experience and IQ is going to win him this fight. And I think because of that, I think he's going to find a way to not only get Jamal on the ground, but be able to catch him in a submission.
Okay, so out of all the fights on the main card, what would you say is the for sure bet?
Ooh. Gilbert Burns winning.
I'm gonna say Jessica Andrade.
I was thinking that, but I was thinking that, but I was like, man, Lauren Murphy is kind of a tough out, and it's not unrealistic for her to pull off an upset. Neil Magny, no disrespect to Neil Magny. Once again, we gave him his props and stuff. He's definitely a really good fighter, and this is a fight that he does belong in to see if he can get into that top 10 or not. But I just feel like this fight is I just think that it's not. I don't think it's a fight that's going to fare out well for him. And if he proves me wrong and stuff, then yeah, fuck it, I'm wrong, right? No, I'm not. There's no shame in my fucking game. This is just my prediction and what I think may happen.
What do you think who is the biggest underdog on the card that has a chance to win? Obviously,
if it's not Neil Magny, it's probably Jamal Hill.
Okay. And the biggest toss-up, obviously, we talked about is the Brandon Moreno, Deiveson Figueiredo fight. So, I think
that's the fight of the night for me.
Fight of the night, I think Gilbert Burns is going to take the show. I think he's going to put on a performance on Saturday.
No, I'm talking about fight of the night, like back and forth fight between two guys.
That's fair.
I think it's the Figueiredo Moreno fight. But the fight, I'm actually, I mean, they're this is a good card. I'm not going to hate. This is a good card. There's definitely some interesting things on there that'll make me be like, yeah, this is why I want to tune into this fight, because I want to see this. I want to see X, Y, Z. So this is a good card. I like the main card. I think the main card, the guys at UFC Matchmaking, I think they did a good job. They try to put fights on there that can be entertaining. So,
all right. Well, do you have anything else for the listeners before we get out of here?
listeners, besides following us on Instagram at the Highly Advised Podcast, Twitter, Advise Highly, and make sure you please subscribe to us out of YouTube at the Highly Advised Podcast. We definitely gonna plan to release more MMA episodes, MMA, excuse me, specific episodes. So the Highly Advised MMA episode 2, there will be a Highly Advised episode MMA 3 where we review these pay-per-view fights. Now, listeners, I can't promise that we will be doing MMA episodes every week, but we're going to do it more often than not. I would like to say is we just, besides our separate lives, our busy lifestyles and stuff, I would like to, or I guess we would like to tailor the MMA episodes around events that are worth talking about versus not. So if it's a week where it's just slow, there's no MMA fights going on, or if there is, it's just fights that we know that it's not going to necessarily bring big news. You might not see an episode from us that week, and that's not disrespect to any MMA fighter or organization, but it's just balancing this out amongst all the other podcast stuff we have going on. So hopefully, listeners, you or viewers, you enjoy not only this episode, but you enjoy this concept that we have, and let us know what you think, and we're gonna listen to the feedback and try to be better from it.
All right, y'all. With that being said, I agree with everything Lau said. Y'all been highly advised. Peace out till next time.